Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, as Aristotle once said. For years, DNA testing has aided us by providing unconditional clarity. Recently, DNA testing has become more common within several parts of the US. Advocates state that DNA testing is a convenient way of determining someone's identity and lineage. Opponents say that DNA testing is an intrusive and unreliable method of learning more about oneself. Today, we will be discussing why you should take a DNA test. Let's begin with the common issue prompting several to take a DNA test.
So the most common issue that prompts one to take a DNA test is the issue of self-identification. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, self-identification can actually affect a person physically, mentally, and psychologically. So starting out with physically, people who develop cancer can often suffer from clinical depression, suicidal thoughts, and high anxiety due to the shock of them finding out they have cancer. Most people cannot discover they have cancer unless they know for a fact that someone in their past and their family has had it and they know to go and get tested. People without cancer can actually develop a mutation in their genes in which they have a higher risk of getting cancer. This physical condition is one of the most challenging to overcome and can really take a major toll on one's mental health and self-identification.
Mental disorders can affect how a person acts and functions. Not knowing about these disorders can negatively impact a person's self-identification. These disorders can be passed down to generations and may even be difficult to identify at times. It is important to know your family's background and be aware of one's risk for disorders and know if they can be tested.
So the psychological effects, according to the American Psychological Association, whenever someone is asked where they come from, they may have a general idea, but may not know 100% where they actually come from. This can cause a major problem in terms of self-identification, and psychologically speaking, can actually make a person feel lost and make them develop disorders such as clinical depression and multiple personality disorder. This is especially common with people who are adopted, as they may not know where their ancestry comes from or where their real parents and family come from. So clearly there are multiple issues revolving around the issue of self-identification and general mental state. But what solution arises to deal with these predicaments?
Taking an autosomal DNA test is the most beneficial solution. Although many are skeptical about it because they think their information will be stolen, their privacy will be violated, or think it's a waste of money. If selected from a reliable source, it is like Ancestry, DNA, and 23andMe. Catherine Ann Wilson from Western Michigan University published a dissertation titled The Social Construct of Race and Ethnicity, One's Self-Identity After a DNA Test, and stated that using a DNA test has the potential to help reshape how an individual chooses to view and articulate their self-identity of their race and their ethnicity. With all this being said, there is evident results, and you can only gain from taking a DNA test, so we highly suggest you do so. Now, let's look over some of the perks of taking a DNA test.
There are a multitude of benefits in taking an autosomal DNA test that will aid us. One being health benefits. By taking an autosomal DNA test, you are given reports detailing your health and potential risks you may encounter in the future, like diseases that have been passed down from generations of your family. Some reports, such as those given by 23andMe, supply recommendations for healthy lifestyle changes that work best for people with a similar genetic makeup to yours. Healthy changes such as eating more vegetables and getting enough sleep are probably a good idea for everyone, regardless of their genes, but certain actions tend to help to reduce health risks more than others depending on your DNA, according to 23andMe. Having this information accessible will only aid us and potentially be the determining factor keeping us from the hospital. Another may be connecting with distant relatives. You can discover what region your family migrated from, and it can also help construct an accurate family tree.
Another great benefit of taking autosomal DNA test is in terms of heritage and ethnicity. Taking a DNA test can provide participants with the full scan in regards to chromosome and can date back up to 5 to 6 generations. As quoted by Ancestry DNA provides a list of people in our 18 million person database who are related to the test taker and an estimate of one's ethnic ancestry by percentage. We surveyed one's DNA at hundreds of thousands of locations and determined how much ethnicity is shared with the people from our reference panel in each region. Overall, autosomal DNA tests can confirm ethnicity percentages and close relationships with high accuracy. Now, let's review.
Clearly, there are multiple issues associated with one's self-identification, and taking an autosomal DNA test can be a real solution. Although several are wary of the potential dangers from taking an autosomal DNA test, it is your best solution due to the many benefits. Some of these being the data regarding health and precautionary measures you should take, the wide branch of connections with distant relatives, and generally find out more about your heritage. We highly suggest that you invest in taking an autosomal DNA test. It's a small price to pay for a lifetime of clarification.